Jay, that's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh shit.
Woo! What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Monday. Today we are going to be discussing the number one challenge facing each team, all 32 teams. We're going to talk about the question marks, whether it's NFL team issues, contract situations, QB conundrums, contract talks. We're going to talk about the number one challenge facing each NFL team. We're going to talk about some NFL news going around the league right now. And we're also going to talk about one player to root for. I'm super excited about this one. But first, hit him with the intro.
America is football. Football
Football is America. If you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass
For the moment in time.
I don't give a damn. Oh my god.
He loved it.
30 to 27.
No!
Chiefs win. Chiefs
No!
win 30 to 20.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Monday edition of the Only Football Podcast. I just remembered that this isn't streaming on X or Twitter. So what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to pull up the YouTube link and I'm going to share it on Twitter so that our Twitter crowd knows that we are doing this right now. Here we go. Copy link, paste. I'm just going to say join me. And the link. Awesome. All right. So as you can see by the title, today we're going to be talking about the biggest question marks for each and every 32 NFL teams. I said that really weird. The number one challenge facing each team. And I'm really excited about this because if you remember, we did this a while ago before the draft, before free agency. It's now post-draft, post-free agency. Each team is pretty much put together. So this isn't going to be as much as, like, let's say last time we did this, what are the Patriots going to do at left tackle? Okay, now it's going to be the biggest question is either got addressed or it's going to be which player is going to rise up at left tackle. There'll be a couple that are the same simply because the team didn't address their biggest need in the draft or free agency. But for a lot of these, it's going to be different. It's going to have to do with the season in some type of way. So we're going to go in chronological order here, and I'm going to start off with the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, and there was a couple question marks with the Arizona Cardinals. I had written down improving the defensive line because Arizona was bit by the injury bug last season. They finished at the bottom in run defense. That can't happen again. They made some moves. They drafted Darius Robinson and Xavier Thomas, and they signed some veterans like Justin Jones and Kyrus Tonga, but ultimately, I'm going to go with the biggest question, and it's going to be Kyler Murray, okay? Is Kyler Murray going to be the long-term quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals? Kyler Murray played in 8 games last season coming off a knee injury. Murray's performance almost 2 years removed from a knee injury is a major concern, but what kind of impact will the new wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. have in his rookie season? How is Kyler Murray going to benefit from Marvin Harrison Jr. That's what's being talked about mostly in the desert right now. And Kyler Murray is an interesting player because when it comes to potential and just raw talent, Kyler Murray is like a top 10 type talent. But for some reason, he's highly disliked by a lot of people. He had been criticized for the video games, field play, injuries. There's just been a lot of negative noise surrounding Murray. And we got Ginger in the chat. Good to see this sexy son of a bitch again. What's good, everyone? What's up, Ginger? Happy to have you in here. I hope all is well, man. So the negative noise surrounding Kyler Murray has been interesting because Kyler Murray has kind of proven that he's a good quarterback. And I know that might be contradicting, but that just goes to show how negative the noise is that surrounds Murray, that you would even feel that way. At the end of the day, Kyler Murray took a poorly run franchise that had been irrelevant for a long time to the playoffs. I know they got blown out in that playoff game against the Rams, but we've seen Kyler Murray do the special. And a lot of players can be good, but not a lot of players can be special. And we've seen Kyler Murray time and time again do the special. And that special is what got him the number 1 overall pick out of Oklahoma, right? It was a very similar situation with Josh Rosen, the quarterback that was drafted, kind of like Justin Fields was the quarterback that was drafted. And then 1 year later, instead of 3 years later, it was 1 year later. But Arizona decided that Kyler Murray was too special. He was too special to waste. Basically, hey, if we wasted a first-round pick on Josh Rosen, so be it. Kyler Murray has to be on our team. He's too talented. It's a very similar situation to where the Bears found themselves at this year. And it wasn't that long ago. We're talking about 2018, I believe. So it is just crazy to think how much changes so fast. And Kyler Murray is going to want to have a big season to remind everybody that he's the real deal, right? Any negative noise surrounding by Murray, I think, has mostly been silenced since Jonathan Gannon walked through the doors last offseason. Everybody feels now that, the chatter will still pop back up here and there, but for the most part, they believe in Jonathan Gannon. And you look at the amount of talent that Arizona added on their team. They added Trey Benson. They added Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think there's a realistic expectation that Arizona could be one of the sneaky teams. Colin Cowherd said on his podcast on YouTube, which was recently posted, he said Kyler Murray needs to grow up for the Arizona Cardinals. And this is interesting because there's a stigma about playing video games. And I'm not a gamer myself, but if you got done with a football practice and you were reading a book or painting a canvas or going, doing yoga, there would be a lot of people that would be perfectly cool with that. But for some reason, playing video games is looked at by a lot of older GMs and they think, Jesus, grow the F up. This guy's addicted to video games. But at the end of the day, he's accurate. He's a playmaker. He took a poorly ran franchise to the playoffs. And when he's playing at his best, he can be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I mean, quarterback people say that he's the best Texas high school football player ever. Period. He wins the Heisman. He gets Arizona to the playoffs. Fans don't like him. The media doesn't like him. Executives don't like him. His owner doesn't like him. You just don't see a player this talented so disliked. So I think Kyler Murray having a winning season, one of those surprising seasons, because I think a lot of people have Arizona winning like 4 or 5 games. I think if he goes out there and wins 9-10 football games, everybody's going to be back on the Kyler Murray train. But conversely, if he goes out there and wins 4 games, people are going to be asking for a new quarterback in Arizona. So the biggest question mark surrounding the Arizona Cardinals is what kind of season is Kyler Murray going to have? We got KC in the chat. He said, except for Kansas City, I think the number one challenge is going to be the Chiefs. Except for Kansas City, I think the number one challenge is going to be the Chiefs. What? Help me out with that, Casey. All right. Staying in chronological order, the Atlanta Falcons. This one was tough because there's a couple. Okay. You could talk about upgrading the pass rush because with the 8th overall pick, the Falcons had their choice at any defensive player that they wanted. No defensive players were off the board, and they took a quarterback. They took Michael Penix Jr., which shocked the entire football world. Atlanta did use 5 picks on defenders, including defensive tackle Rook Orohoro and Braylon Trice on day 2. But the question is that going to be enough? They brought in Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, or they lose Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree, and they just, you don't know. I mean, Grady Jarrett is going to return after an ACL. So is he going to come back to the form he was at prior to injury? A lot of times it takes 2 years for something like that. With Michael Penix waiting in and on the sideline, can Kirk Cousins get the Falcons over the hump and give Atlanta its first NFC South title since 2016? You guys, it's been 8 years since Atlanta has won the NFC South. And Kirk Cousins, before he got injured last year, was on pace to be the best quarterback in the NFL last season before his injury. I still think Dak Prescott would have finished with more passing yards most likely, but still, Kirk Cousins was playing at a high level, and just because the Vikings didn't want to give him a ton of guaranteed money in a multiple year commitment, Kirk Cousins leaves. But that doesn't mean just because a player leaves that he's not still playing at a really high level. I think it's easy to, naturally, when a team doesn't want a guy, we assume that there's a reason that they don't want him. But the Vikings' reason for not wanting Kirk Cousins had nothing to do with Kirk Cousins playing at an extremely high level in the next 1 year. It was a problem predicting the next 4 years. So can Kirk Cousins get the Falcons over the hump? I mean, we look at Atlanta's roster and we say time and time again, man, this is a very, very good roster. They're just a quarterback away. Reminds me of the Denver Broncos when we acquired Russell Wilson. But Kirk Cousins is playing at a much higher level, and the expectations for the Falcons are playoffs. So the biggest question mark surrounding Atlanta is Kirk Cousins going to be able to come in and make that immediate impact and prove everybody that had been saying that the Falcons are a quarterback away right? Can Kirk Cousins prove them all right? Or will we say, hey, they got a lot of big names, but they're not that great, right? Kyle Pitts, everyone knows him. He has yet to really justify his draft selection at like 4, overall. Drake London, amazing. But I don't even know if he has a 1,000-yard season yet. There's just a lot of names, kind of like Jerry Jeudy and, all these guys for the Broncos. But can the Falcons have a better fortune than Denver did? Can those guys actually play to the level that they were drafted to? Can Kirk Cousins bring the most out of them? And if so, does Atlanta take the title over the Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield playing at a really high level, and they were able to keep their top wide receivers? So I'm excited for the NFC South. Last year it was a snooze of a division. This year I'm expecting it to be competitive and fun. Atlanta and Buccaneers are the two teams that I think are going to be competing the most. And we're going to talk about that other team in the division here pretty soon. But first, we're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, okay? The Ravens, there's a couple question marks, okay? There's a fun question mark and then the most realistic one. I think the most realistic one for the Ravens is getting the defense into good shape. Okay, there's a lot of new pieces coming in. Me and Rick were just talking about that. They lost Mike McDonald. The Eagles taught us last year how detrimental losing a good coordinator can be, and they lost Patrick Queen, and the AFC did not get any easier. So are the Ravens going to be able to overcome in some key losses on the offensive line? But just talking about the defense, can they overcome losing Mike McDonald? Can they overcome losing Patrick Queen? Can the new guys come in, the new coordinator come in, and pick up right where the 13-4 Baltimore Ravens left off? Now, the fun one that as a fan I think of immediately is Derrick Henry going to have a monster season for the Ravens, right? Another case of us thinking that just because a team let a player go, that player's not that great, right? We kind of did it with Kirk Cousins. People are kind of doing it with Derrick Henry. They say he's not the same old Derrick Henry. Look, this guy's 30 years old. Let's not act like he's 36 or 35. He was still PFF's third highest graded running back last season. Okay, so can the Ravens offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, effectively construct an offensive attack that will put Henry and Jackson in the Ravens offense in the best position to succeed? And last year, I pulled it up here, Baltimore led the NFL in averaging 156.4 rushing yards per game. Chicago was at 2, Arizona was 3, San Francisco at 4, and Buffalo was at 5. What do those teams have in common? Well, Chicago, Baltimore, and Buffalo all have a team that has a quarterback that will run for 70 to 100 yards any given Sunday. Now, Justin Fields is gone, but Baltimore and Lamar Jackson I think he's had the most rushing yards every single season since he became the quarterback. So I still expect Baltimore to have the most rushing yards per game. But the question is Derrick Henry going to be the lead rusher on this team? And if so, is that going to make Baltimore an easier team, right? It's really hard to stop a quarterback from running. If Derrick Henry's running and they're like, okay, we're taking some of this off your plate, Lamar Jackson. We don't want you running as much. We want you to feed Derrick Henry. That's why we brought him here. Of course, they only had 81 rushing yards in their last game, which was half of what they averaged every single game. But if they do make a philosophical adjustment to the offense and change their identity, are they going to have the same success? Will they still be the number one rushing team in the country? And if so, is Derrick Henry the piece that takes them over the top? 81 rushing yards in the final game of the season, running the ball, I think, twice or 3 times in the whole second half. These are the reasons that Derrick Henry is here. How will he fit in to Baltimore's offense, and how will it affect Lamar Jackson? And we got, I took an oof in the chat. Where are the Seahawks? Well, we got the chronological order going right now. Ginger, lost my grandpa recently. Marriage isn't great, but it's going all right, man. Life goes on. Sorry to hear that, Ginger. You know, it goes in it's waves. Life goes in waves. Sometimes when you're having a bad season, it just helps to know that it doesn't last forever, and you got people that care about you. So keep your head up. I promise if you stay strong, things will get better. And rest in peace to your grandpa. I'm sure he was a great man. All right. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills have a couple situations, but I think the biggest one is going to be sorting things out at wide receiver. However Buffalo decides to do that is going to be the biggest question mark. It's not every day that you lose a player as good as Stephon Diggs. It just doesn't happen. And there's been back and forth opinions because some people look at Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis both gone, and they go, well, I'm not sure Keon Coleman is going to be this amazing replacement. He's a rookie, and they're going to ask him to do a lot. But to push back on that, I will say it's just a different identity. It's like the Packers with Jordan Love. When you have the quarterback figured out, the receiver thing kind of handles itself in a way. Just ask the Chiefs. Even though that they had a need, they still found a way to win games. And I do think Josh Allen is still probably the second best quarterback in the NFL. So yeah, I think that in Josh Allen's specific case, I think he can overcome the Diggs thing. Right? Buffalo might not need a true number one wide receiver. And we've seen games where Stephon Diggs wasn't in the game, and it's hard to remember which ones they were. When Tyreek Hill was out for the Dolphins, it's easy to remember those games because there was a glaring weakness. I'm not saying that Stephon Diggs being gone is not going to hurt. At times it's nice to have that guy that when you're running for your life on 3rd and long that you can just throw it up. That guy's gone right now. But I do think that you're going to see other players kind of emerge onto the scene. Khalil Shakur is going to be in line for more work. Curtis Samuel arrives with a chance to earn a starting job. And then they also kind of threw in a bunch of veterans, and they're just going to throw a dart and see which one sticks. And I like a lot of these picks, right? Matt Collins was good for the Raiders. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is good for the Chiefs. Good enough to be a wide receiver 3. Chase Claypool and KJ Hamler, who still he was a 3rd-round draft pick, a really fast receiver that dealt with off-the-field issues, dealt with injuries, and the off-the-field issues weren't his own doing. It was, I think he lost his grandma, and it was really hard on him. But they have a lot of talent on this team, and I'm starting to think that the whole plan is to do like the Packers, where Jordan Love said, we don't have a number one wide receiver. It's going to be somebody different every week. And I also expect them to rely heavily on their tight ends. I think Dalton Kincaid is going to have a breakout season, probably the 2nd most receiving yards for a tight end. And then they have Dawson Knox still. So I think a lot of Josh Allen's production this season is going to come from their tight ends. And I think the biggest question is, how is Buffalo going to be without Stephon Diggs? But if I had to give you an answer right now, I would give you a bold prediction and say that Josh Allen is going to be better without Stephon Diggs. I think without him, you're going to see a significantly better Josh Allen. I know that seems really crazy, but you got to keep in mind that Diggs is such a polarizing wide receiver that he always has to give him the ball. Josh Allen is one of the league's top quarterbacks because of his ability to make everyone around him better. He's thrown for over 4,200 yards and recorded over 40 total touchdowns in each of the last 4 seasons. And Buffalo hasn't been a really good team in each of the last 4 seasons. But they've been pretty, I'll say because I'm not going to say they've been really great because they haven't made the Super Bowl, but they've been pretty good, right? You don't win the division 4 consecutive times if you're not pretty good. And I think they can do it again, despite having to replace, a 6-time 1,000-yard receiver in Diggs. I think they can, but I think it's squarely going to be on the shoulders of Josh Allen. This is a group of wide receivers, and he's going to have to spread the ball around. But here's the thing. He's not going to have to worry about keeping anyone happy and force-feeding the ball to Stephon Diggs, which, whether he admits it or not, we know that is a fact. That is something that he has to do, right? You just know every time you throw the ball to somebody else and Diggs was open, you got this invisible meter that fills up. I got to get Diggs the ball. He's going to be mad. It's halftime. He only has 2 targets. Now you don't have to deal with that. And I think you're going to see Josh Allen play loose. He's going to play more free. I think they're going to be just fine. I think they're going to win 11 games and make the playoffs again. But as of right now, I think there is a question of how will this look without Stephon Diggs, and which receiver is going to emerge as that new guy. KC said, sorry to hear about your grandpa, Jinja. And he said, thanks, man. I appreciate it. He was in bad shape. Kind of helped soften the blow. Yeah, man. And Gamer Dad 18792 said, these damn Cowboys still continue to piss me off. Love to see that I'm not the only one that gets mad at the Cowboys. And the Cowboys are coming up here pretty soon because we are in the C's. We are going in chronological order, discussing the biggest team question mark going into the season. And up next, we have the Carolina Panthers. And I think this one is pretty agreeable. Can new head coach Dave Canales and his staff get Bryce Young and the Panthers back on track? That's kind of a loaded one question. It's almost cheating because there's two questions in there. There's getting Bryce Young on track. And then there's the fact that Dave Canales is a new head coach. So ultimately, I'm going to say the big question is Dave Canales. Okay. Because it's almost as if one solves the other. If Dave Canales is a good coach for the Panthers, he's going to get Bryce Young on track, right? And a lot of people might not know Dave Canales because he's a new head coach. But Dave Canales has a pretty interesting track record here. He was in his second season as the offensive coordinator of his high school in Carson, California. He was born to coach football. 2 years in, Lizzie, his wife, says, I think you're really good at this. We can take this as far as you want to go. Dave recalled in June of 2023, before he interviewed for his first season as the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Carolina Panthers owner David Tepper apparently saw the same thing in his search for a new coach. Instead of requesting to interview proven winners like Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel, instead of waiting for hot prospects such as Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson or whoever is under Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan at any given moment, instead of doing that, they pursued Dave Canales, 42-year-old guy who actually no other team even asked for an interview. All right, Canales believes those who were surprised by his younger brother's hire, Josh Canales, will one day understand why it seemingly came out of nowhere. When a scout sees a player that they don't want anybody to know about, they stay quiet about it. And Josh is saying the same thing was the case with Canales, that he's been quietly just piecing his a great career together, working hard, sacrificing, taking big learning moments. He was responsible for Geno Smith 2 years ago, right? We looked at Geno Smith and we laughed. We were like, okay, Drew Lock's definitely going to be the starter. And then they named Geno Smith the starter, and we all were like, that's the guy that they're going to go with, right? Geno Smith for the past decade had been MIA, and now he's going to be the starting quarterback. Good luck with that. And Geno Smith ended up winning Comeback Player of the Year. That's how good of a season he had. Then you go to last season. Baker Mayfield had every reason to have a bad season. He's been bouncing from team to team to team to team, right? He was on his third team in 1 year. No stability. A Tampa Bay team that had no Super Bowl expectations. Baker Mayfield was nothing but a bridge quarterback with upside of maybe there's something there. And that maybe happened to be something, because Dave Canales put Baker Mayfield in a situation where now he has a $100 million contract with Tampa Bay. So this is the perfect guy to get young to the level that we saw him in college. Personally, I didn't think Bryce Young was going to work out. I still don't think he's going to work out. But there is a reason, if you're a Panthers fan, to at least have hope, because Canals has done this every single season for the last 2 years. He's taken a quarterback and he's turned their career around. And we actually saw what Geno Smith looked like last year without him. So think about that too. Sometimes it's what players look like when you're gone that actually awakens you to how important you were. I didn't realize how good the coordinators for the Eagles were until I saw how bad the Eagles were last year without him and how surprising the Cardinals were. So, and how good the Colts were, right? So, yeah, the biggest question mark right now is Dave Canals for the Panthers and if he's going to be able to get them back on track. All right, next up we have the Oh, Rick, get ready. We got the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears. And for those of you tuning in for the first time, I normally shoot this with my partner, who is a Bears fan, but he's having some computer issues right now. But the Chicago Bears are next up. And the biggest question mark surrounding the Bears is going to be a simple one. Did the Bears make the right decision by parting ways with Justin Fields and drafting Caleb Williams? And the Bears traded for Keenan Allen. They drafted Rome Odunze to kind of help with Williams' transition. And I made this point the other day. When you put a quarterback with the hype of Caleb Williams, normally a quarterback that is hyped that much ends up on a really lousy team. Whether it was Joe Burrow joining the Bengals or Trevor Lawrence joining the Jaguars or Peyton Manning joining the Colts, there is a tradition that the really, really good quarterbacks out of college have to turn around a really poor franchise. But Caleb Williams finds himself in a totally different situation, the best situation I've maybe ever seen a quarterback drafted to. And in a way that puts more pressure on Caleb Williams, because if he doesn't do well, there's no excuse for him. And you look at the over-under on Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams' over-under was, I think, at 3,300 passing yards. The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard quarterback, and the question is, would that even be a success, throwing for 3,300 yards? Or is this team so good that if Caleb Williams throws for less than 4,000 yards, it's actually a bad thing? Okay. The expectations couldn't be higher for Caleb Williams. And the question all season, especially when they play the Texans week 2, there's going to be an emphasis on that game, because the Bears had the number 1 overall pick last year, and they ended up trading it. They traded that pick, and how did that work out? So the Bears traded the pick last year. They moved back, and where were the... I'm forgetting because the new draft... Hold on. Bears trade 2023 draft pick. Okay, the Bears sent the number 1 overall pick to Carolina in exchange for DJ Moore. That's what I was thinking of. So the Bears had the number 1 overall pick. So guess what that means? That means that week 2, when they play the Houston Texans, Caleb Williams will be playing CJ Stroud, a quarterback that has turned the Houston Texans franchise around in an instant. The kind of impact that Bears fans can only hope that Justin Fields will bring to the Bears, even though Caleb Williams is in a better situation, arguably, than CJ Stroud was when he went to the Texans. So when CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams play each other week 2, The whole, did the Bears make the right decision? How they ended up here, what they could have had. There's a lot weighing on that game. And Bears fans know that, and they're going to want to win. They're going to want to say, we made the right choice by trading the pick to the Panthers. But the question is, would the Bears, if they stayed at number 1, drafted Bryce Young or CJ Stroud? Because there's a lot of teams that were in on Bryce Young, but I don't get it, because if you got 2 prospects that are, a 9.2 out of 10, you're going to go with the more prototypical quarterback. And the Panthers did not do that. And only Dave Canales can fix that situation. We'll see if he can. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals. We got Bill in the chat. And Bill said, damn it, the notification didn't come on the screen. Howdy, KC Jinja. I posted it on X. I was like, oh, Bill's, how are we going to let Bill know? And Ginger said Frank Reich was a horrible choice by the Panthers. Eagles will win the NFC this year. They'll be back. Sorry, Bill. Fields will end up with the job and have a good year, taking Schittsburg to the playoffs. Sorry, Rick. Wow. That's a packed statement. Me and Rick have been going back and forth. This is going to be Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. So, yeah, Justin Fields he's a little too talented to sit on the sideline. We'll see. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals, I've been consistent with the Bengals this entire offseason. The question is, can Joe Burrow stay healthy? Joe Burrow has now been injured 2 of his 4 seasons. Can the Bengals keep Joe Burrow healthy and upright, which will be, and I quote myself here, T. Higgins' last year in Cincinnati? Okay. The Bengals have prioritized Jamar Chase's contract extension over Higgins. And as a result, Higgins is going to play under the franchise tag, but there is no scenario where the Bengals are able to pay T. Higgins. So this is kind of like, in a way, it's the last dance, right? Joe Burrow has taken this team to the Super Bowl. He's taken them to 2 AFC championship games in a row. And if he can stay healthy, the expectations are Super Bowl. And it's hard to lose a guy like T. Higgins. And I know Joe Burrow made that comment where he said, our Super Bowl window is my entire career. But it's going to be a lot harder when you lose T. Higgins. We'll just put it that way. So I do think that the Bengals might be in their best chance to win the Super Bowl this year than they are in the next coming years. This is their chance. Jamar Chase is going to get paid. You've heard the language out of the front office. They say it's going to take a long time. They said we're going to have to bend over backwards to pay him. So they said it's going to get done, but they said it's going to take a long time because this contract is going to be very similar to the one that Justin Jefferson just signed. Jamar Chase will be the highest paid wide receiver, and Joe Burrow is already being paid. There's only so much slices of the pie, and T. Higgins, unfortunately, is not the priority over Jamar Chase. So this is going to be the last dance for this receiving core in Joe Burrow. And if the Bengals can keep him safe, they have a chance to do it all. But the biggest question is going to be, can the Bengals keep Joe Burrow safe, who's been hurt 50% of the seasons since he joined the league? I hope he can, because I think football is way more fun when Joe Burrow is healthy. I love Joe Burrow. I'm a huge fan. But yeah, keep the guy healthy, for crying out loud. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns. This one is going to be another agreeable one. Is Deshaun Watson ever going to regain his Pro Bowl form the way he looked and played in 2020? In 12 games as the Browns quarterback, Watson's completion percentage is 59.8, 184 yards per game, and a passer rating of 81.7. Those are all well below his marks in his 4 seasons in Houston. And this is it. This kind of feels like it, right? You gave him $240 million fully guaranteed. So far, that deal looks awful, but there's still optimism around Cleveland, because before Deshaun Watson got hurt, he was starting to look like himself. He was. And you got the defense there. And you might not need Deshaun Watson to, with that defense, score, 25, 30 points a game. But if he can score 24 points a game, they're probably going to win most of their games with that defense. So the question is, Deshaun Watson, is he going to return to a $240 million level? And if he's not, he needs to at least return to a top 15 quarterback, which is something we haven't seen yet with the Cleveland Browns. And we got Embrace the Struggle in the chat. What's going on? Happy to have you in here. Bill said it came up on YouTube, so I turned on the notification. Sick. Yeah, guys, if you want to be notified on YouTube when we go live, make sure to hit the notification button. Next up, we have the team that was asked about by GamerDad, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas freaking Cowboys. Oh, one question. I got like 5. Okay. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons are all eligible for a contract extension. Is Jerry Jones going to back up the Brink trucks and drop off all this money? Or is this going to be Dak Prescott's final year? And there was an NFL insider that just posted that I think he said by the end of this month, there will be a new highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Some people are assuming that that's Dak Prescott. Other people say it's Jordan Love. But the Cowboys have just over $12 million in salary cap space. So it's going to be hard to pay all these guys. And this also feels like a team where it's like you can pay 2 stars, right? Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, but it gets more difficult when you're paying 3. Okay, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons are all going to want to be paid at the highest amount for their positional group. That's going to be difficult. So if this is the Dallas Cowboys' last dance as well, there is going to be, I guess my question is who they're going to pay. And are any of these guys going to get paid before the season starts this year? CeeDee Lamb said he's not going to hold out. If McCarthy and Prescott both thrive this year, they arguably each deserve extensions, in my opinion. Because last year, Prescott played at an MVP level. He played so good, and we forget so fast because, let's be real, that Packers loss was really, really ugly, and it just threw everything away. But Dak Prescott looked really good, and so did Mike McCarthy. And the fact that people are ready to move off Dak is kind of ridiculous. I'm not a Dak fan. I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I do know what it's like to not have a quarterback. And the Cowboys, although Dak hasn't had postseason success, they still have had a better quarterback than most teams, right? He was playing at the second highest level of any quarterback last season. The stats back it up. The eyeball test. I just say be careful what you wish for, right? You want to start fishing for quarterbacks and getting guys like Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston, and just be careful. That's a very painful road to go down. Just ask a New York Giants fan or ask a Denver Broncos fan. because the Denver Broncos have been on the quarterback carousel for the past 10 years. It has been 10 years since they won Super Bowl 15, 2015, going on 10 years. And the Broncos not only haven't gotten the quarterback right, they have not even had a playoff appearance. It is the longest drought in franchise history. And we bring in Sean Payton, and we go, look, as long as we have Sean Payton, we have a chance to get back to the playoffs. But he inherited a team that he didn't want, including a quarterback he didn't want. And Russell Wilson is now gone. And Sean Payton, for the first time in his head coaching career, has hand-selected a quarterback, and it's rookie Bo Nix. The biggest question mark surrounding the Denver Broncos this year is whether or not Bo Nix is going to be the quarterback of the future for the Broncos. The Broncos haven't made the playoffs since Peyton Manning, and it's because of the quarterback position. And now you bring in Bo Nix, who might not have been your typical top 12 pick, given that he was the 6th quarterback drafted. But Sean Payton clearly wanted him, and a lot of people that were close to him were saying he's the perfect fit for Sean Payton. They still have Jared Stidham and Zach Wilson, which is like the ultimate wild card option. But counting on him to contribute in a major way would be way too suspicious, right? I don't think Jared Stidham or Zach Wilson bring you upside. So who's going to be the starter week 1? I think it's going to be Bo Nix. I think you draft a quarterback in the first round. You're not going with Zach Wilson or Jared Stidham. But it depends how good he looks in camp, how good he looks in the preseason. Jared Stidham's going into his 2nd year in the system, so he's already got an advantage. And people that have been watching them practice say Jared Stidham has had the best throws in practice, the throw of the day. I think 4 days in a row went to Jared Stidham. So there's going to be question marks around quarterback. I'm going to skip that question and say Bo Nix is going to be the starter. And I'll make my question whether or not Bo Nix is going to work out. That is the biggest question mark surrounding the Denver Broncos. And Embrace the Struggle said Dak is what he is. Not spectacular, but good enough to keep a team in contention. Nobody is really expecting the Cowboys to be all that great, but just when it seems like they're going to be bad, they find ways to be competitive. And Bill says they're going to have to restructure someone. Even with a disappointing finish to the season last year, I still expect the Eagles to be legit contenders. And look, we're gonna get to the Eagles, but I'll say this right now: if Jerry doesn't pay Dak, he's insane. I agree with that. And I'll say this about the Eagles: I think the Eagles are going to be one, if not the best NFC team. Period. You do realize that they have Kellen Moore, who is a proven offensive, play caller for the Cowboys for the past however long. Right, last year his time in with the Chargers didn't go that well. Okay, but they didn't even have Justin Herbert. So I still think Kellen Moore is a great coordinator. I think Vic Fangio is the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, a top 5 at the minimum. So, yeah, you bring in the 2 new coordinators that I think are going to both be upgrades. And I think you're going to see Jalen Hurts get back to the level we saw him when he went to the Super Bowl. They made amazing draft picks with Cooper DeJean and also finding a way to draft who was it? They drafted 2 corners, Cooper DeJean and crap, I'm blanking on his name, but it was Quinion Mitchell. That's who it was. And man, you just look at the talent that they bring in every single draft class. I think the Eagles are going to be very, very good this year. But this is the hard part of the year because there's a lot of teams that you feel strongly about. And Bill said, holy crap, CD is getting almost $18 million this year. Yeah, that's why he said that he's not going to hold out. That much money will make you a little patient, right? But here's another team that I think is going to be really, really good. The Detroit Lions. Okay, the Detroit Lions. And to be honest, when you go through the Lions, there's not a lot of holes in the team. But the one thing that I think you could make an argument is fixing the secondary. Okay. And make no mistake about it, the Lions Super Bowl window is officially open. The hope is the defense isn't the reason that that window shuts, because they lost Cameron Sutton. CJ Gardner-Johnson's back with the Eagles. Jerry Jacobs, Tracy Walker, and Will Harris are all gone. Enter veterans Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, I believe you pronounce his name. And then they draft Terrion Arnold, who is arguably the best corner in this year's draft. And second rounder Ennis Rakestraw Jr., who is going to be the starting corner number 2. So, like, they've addressed their needs. It's just a matter of seeing, okay, are these guys going to work? The Lions also added to the defensive front, which theoretically should help the back end, because that is just how football works. You have a good pass rush that helps the secondary, just like a good secondary gets you more coverage sacks. But there's no question that if Aaron Glenn's defense is going to get better, it's going to require those new DBs, including at least one rookie, stepping up in a big way, which I think is very, very likely that you're going to see Terrion Arnold step up in a big way. And I just said this the other day. Look at the top corners that have been drafted. Just look at 23, 22, 21. Look at the top 3 corners in each year's draft class. Corner is a pretty sure position. It's not like quarterback where you can just whiff totally. Corner, you pretty much know what you're going to get. And Terrion Arnold is a pretty safe draft pick. I think it's very likely he steps up in a big way. There's an emerging core in place with Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, but the Lions are going to have to cut way back on allowing chunk plays, because they gave up a league worst 69 passes of 20-plus air yards last season. Can the Detroit Lions fix their secondary? And Embrace the Struggle said the Falcons might be a sleeper. However, Kirk Cousins will certainly need to make a good impression. Anyone but the Chiefs can win the Super Bowl. Bill said Lions' biggest problem is Campbell needs to know when to pump the brakes. I didn't know where you could go so many different ways with that. I was like, Campbell needs to drink more caffeine, chew more tobacco, turn more red. Have we done the Bills yet? We have done the Bills. The Bills' biggest question mark, I went with the wide receiving group. Losing Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. The biggest question mark is, what is the post-Diggs era going to look like? And I went on to say that I think Josh Allen will have maybe his best season ever this year, which is kind of what I'm doing here. Is I'm asking the question, but I'm giving you my answer as I go, if that makes sense. All right, next up, we have the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers. And the biggest question mark is going to be elevating the defense. That's the biggest challenge for the Packers. Okay, after leaving Boston College as a head coach to run the Packers defense, Jeff Hafley faces a lot of pressure to improve a unit that was plagued by leaky run fits and ranked near the bottom of the league in interceptions and yards allowed per pass. Matt LaFleur is on his 3rd defensive coordinator after Joe Barry couldn't achieve enough consistency. So the Packers have been trying to get the defense right since Matt LaFleur took over. They haven't been able to do it yet. So can Jeff Hafley get this unit playing at a high level? The talent appears to be there to improve, especially after the addition of safety Xavier McKinney and a few rookies who could immediately contribute. I still expect Cedric Van Pran to have he's Yeah. No. Van Ness. Lucas Van Ness, I think. I expect him to have a breakout season for the Packers. I think the Packers could end up starting a defense almost entirely composed of former early draft picks and notable free agent additions. So you're going to have a lot of upside, a lot of people that were highly scouted, highly ranked people. And the Packers had no problem passing up, the sexy picks for Lucas Van Ness. Well, now it's time for the fruit of these I guess, unemotional decisions, right? The Packers have said, we could make a big splash draft pick here, or we could continue to build our defense. And they have. So the expectation should be high for the Packers defense. Yet there's still unanswered question marks, especially in the secondary, and especially with a brand new defensive coordinator. So are the Packers and their defense going to be figured out? We know how we feel about the offense. We know how we feel about Jordan Love. You bring in Josh Jacobs, but can the Packers, they have Super Bowl expectations. They have true Super Bowl aspirations, and no one's laughing at them anymore. But it's really hard to fulfill that and to have those expectations when we don't even know what the defensive coordinator is going to look like. So the biggest question mark is the defense for the Green Bay Packers and whether this coordinator's got what it takes. And Embrace Struggle said, I could see the Packers winning the North in the NFC. I could too, especially with Jordan Love playing at the level that we saw him last. And Nash said, I think post Diggs will be better than when we had him. The Buffalo Bills have the team. Perseverance is what they need, and beating the Chiefs when it truly matters. Very true. But injuries could be their obstacle, though. I never wish that on anybody. Yep, that is true. Josh Allen has never lost to the Chiefs in the regular season, I'm pretty sure. So I have a theory of a sports theory. Well, regardless, the Bills need to find a way to beat the Chiefs, and it's going to be poetic justice to Bills fans, or the opposite of poetic justice, when when Xavier Worthy scores the game-winning touchdown against the Bills, who the Chiefs traded up with the Bills to draft. Right? That would just be the luck. But yeah, can Jeff Hafley be the guy? Right? The Packers been waiting for a defensive coordinator to stick around for a while. Can it be him? Next up, we have the Houston Texans. And the Texans, just 1 year removed from having a ton of question marks all around the team. There's not very many anymore. But the biggest challenge is going to be, I went back and forth on this one. I put getting the secondary to gel in time for the season, but the other one is CJ Stroud. What is he going to do for an encore after, beating almost all the major passing categories last season as a rookie and winning Offensive Rookie of the Year and just blowing everybody's mind? We've talked about it. I say there's no way he's going to have a sophomore slump. But it seems to be the biggest question when I talk about the Texans on the podcast and with comments is that people are expecting CJ Stroud to have a sophomore slump. So I went back and forth. The Texans, man, they have a lot of firepower with Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon added to the mix with Tank Dell and Nico Collins. So look, the question is there because you guys are asking it. But for me, I'm going to stick with the secondary because I don't have any doubt in my mind that CJ Stroud is going to do what he did last year again. So getting the secondary to gel is more of a realistic question mark, in my opinion. The pass defense last year was the biggest culprit, and they might be outsized. They got Kamari Laster and Kalen Bullock. That you're going to try to get those guys to contribute early on, but there's no clear-cut upgrade from the veteran ranks. The pass rush could be stronger with the additions of Daniel Hunter from Minnesota and Danico Autry. There are some questions at linebacker and defensive tackle. The Texans' schedule does look pretty tough. There's no run up to the offense heavy hitters that they'll face on the back end. But still, if the Texans want to get themselves in the Super Bowl and be a legitimate Super Bowl contender, they're going to have to find ways to upgrade defensively early on. And they drafted players like Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock. But this is a little bit different than the situation with the Eagles drafting Terrion Arnold, or the Lions drafting Terrion Arnold, right? It's a lot different because here you have the Houston Texans, just like the Lions, needing to upgrade a specific position group, but they didn't address it with a top 5 corner in the draft. They tried for a day 2 guy. And you can get, day 2 guys hit all the time, but it's just a little more of a question than your bona fide stars like Quinion Mitchell and Terrion Arnold and, your Sauce Gardners, your Patrick Surtains, your Stingley Juniors, your Devin Witherspoons. This is a little bit different. Okay. So the biggest question mark for the Houston Texans is getting their secondary to gel in time for the season. So a lot of new pieces, but ultimately, I think even if the Texans have to score 40 points a week, which I don't, I think DeMeco Ryans is a great head coach, and I think he's going to have this team playing well. But what I'm trying to say is I think CJ Stroud can overcome the minor deficiencies that the Texans might have. But if you had to have a glaring weakness on the team, it's definitely the secondary at this point for the Texans. And Embrace Struggle said, Texans could take a step back this year, though. It doesn't mean they're a bad team by any stretch. Then again, a 12-5 or 13-4 season does not seem totally unthinkable. Close games could mean the difference between a playoff berth and so on for the Texans, or like the first seed and 4 or 5 seed, for instance, struggle. That's how I feel like the Bills will do. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Rick was saying. He's like, I'm not expecting a sophomore slump. I'm just not expecting a record-breaking season, which I feel like is honestly, it's like the safest prediction you can have. I don't expect him to break all the records again, but, I expect him to be good. I think that's the by far the safest prediction you can make. And now we make it to Jinja and his Colts. And this one, I'm telling you, this is a what do you call it? An undisputed answer. Anthony Richardson. Okay. I'm not even going to say keeping Anthony Richardson healthy because he's only played 4 games. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, just because he's a running guy that he's going to get hurt again. Like, he got hurt. Joe Burrow got hurt his first year. A lot of quarterbacks get hurt. But I'm more concerned if Anthony Richardson is going to be the guy. Like the MVP odds, I think he was like 9th or 10th on the MVP odds. I was like, what? So the expectations are that the Colts have found their guy. And there's a solid case to be made that the Colts are a sleeper team this year. But it's probably not going to be possible without Richardson staying healthy and making big strides in year 2. The Colts almost made the playoffs last year with Gardner Minshew, and that is a testament to how well they are coached. Now you got Joe Flacco as the backup who rescued the Browns down the stretch. So maybe if something were to happen, knock on wood where you can find it, maybe Joe Flacco could have the same success. But I still think the Colts have to find a way to keep Richardson on the field so they can know over the course of the whole season what their future looks like. Right? We saw brief glimpses last year where it was very encouraging, right? I even in the preseason, he made plays that were just amazing. And then we saw some plays that were concerning, okay? And that's normal for a rookie quarterback. He suffered a concussion and the season-ending shoulder injury, so we didn't get to see that much of him. But I still think the biggest question mark surrounding the Colts right now is whether they have the most important position in football figured out or not. Because they drafted Anthony Richardson pretty high, and it was a guy that kind of just emerged during the pre-draft process, and we were like, Anthony Richardson's going to get drafted that high, and the Colts did it, and he had his moments where they looked smart. But I do think they have the coach figured out in Shane Steichen. So I like his chances. I'll put it that way. I like his chances a lot. Never sleep on the Colts. Never sleep on the Colts. Ginger will love to hear you say that. All right, next up, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who just paid Trevor Lawrence a boatload of money. Their biggest challenge this year is going to be achieving consistency. And this has been a theme with the Jaguars. Entering last season, the Jaguars were viewed as up-and-comers. They just got done almost beating the Chiefs in a game where players were dropping passes. They fumbled it on the goal line, and yet the game still came down to an onside kick. And it was like, okay, the Jaguars are going to be competing for a Super Bowl next year. Very similar to the Lions winning Week 18. And everybody was like, the Lions are going to be good. And they were. But the Jaguars were not, right? The Jaguars had a pretty poor 2023 season. They started the season 8-3, but that's pretty much when everything fell apart. They dropped 5 of their last 6. They fell out of the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence was dealing with injuries. And for the Jaguars, I mean, you paid Trevor Lawrence. You know he's the guy. But can they achieve consistency? The roller coaster has been nonstop the past 3 years. There's been very, very good moments within the franchise. There's been Urban Meyer. There was last season. Is Doug Peterson the guy if they don't have a winning season this year, or does he get fired? There's just a lot of inconsistency and question marks surrounding the team. The Jaguars just need to go out there. They need to win their football games. Doug Peterson needs to call a good game, and Trevor Lawrence needs to play at a high level. And they need to do that week in and week out and put themselves back on the map as a safe team to predict playoffs. Because right now it doesn't feel like the Jaguars are a safe team. They seem a little bit of an up and down. Who knows what you're going to get? And that is not what you want when you pay your quarterback the most money of any quarterback in NFL history. So he can go to Waffle House every single day. And Embrace Struggle said, yep, I agree. They're like a revolving door. Duval. Remember when who asked? I think it was Bill. He was like, what's Duval? It might have been Rick. I can't remember. Kansas City Chiefs. All right, their biggest question mark? Everything. They're just absolutely awful. No, there's a couple. You got Rashee Rice and his possible suspension for the off the field incidents with the racing, the cars, and the crime scene, all that stuff. And then the jaw getting broke at the nightclub. That is a huge question mark because Rashee Rice was the only, the Chiefs had a bad receiving group last year, and Rashee Rice was the bright spot. And now he's dealing with everything he's dealing with. And you draft Xavier Worthy. And you just wonder, are the Chiefs going to be able to be the first team in NFL history to win 3 straight Super Bowls? And right now, Rice's uncertain status is starting to make people feel like it is too big of a mountain to climb for them. But with Patrick Mahomes being as good as he is, I said the same thing about Josh Allen. I don't really worry about the receiver. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, they'll find a way. Okay. So the bigger concern, in my opinion, and the biggest question mark for the Chiefs is the left tackle position. They need to settle on a left tackle, and we don't know who it's going to be. Last season, we questioned whether Mahomes had the kind of wide receiver weaponry that he would need to win the Super Bowl, and then he did it. Okay, now this year, we're wondering who's going to be protecting his blind side. Last year's starter, Devon Smith, remains a free agent. Could he return? It's possible, but for now, the Chiefs are willing to let Wanya Morris and a 2024 second rounder in Kingsley Samatia compete for the job. So Morris struggled a bit in 4 rookie starts down the stretch, replacing the injured Smith, and Samatia was a solid pass protector last year at BYU, but he wasn't as effective in the running game. Even with the superhuman that Mahomes is, the Chiefs are going to need at least solid play here to keep their hope alive for a third straight championship. And Mahomes is that good where whatever your question is, it probably is not going to be that big of a deal. Mahomes is the best at not getting sacked. I think he was sacked the least amount of times, yet he held onto the ball the longest per throw. And that's just his thing. Like he'll run around, he buys time. And by the thing is the corner, especially if they're in man, they can cover a wide receiver for 7 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds. Once you start getting 8, 9, and the wide receiver starts making it up and he's just running, that's when you get that chemistry between a quarterback and a receiver. That's what makes Travis Kelce so good, because you can no longer cover somebody that long. So it's almost like the defensive line, you need to sack Mahomes after 7 seconds or you're setting up your corners to fail. But without a left tackle, is Mahomes going to be able to buy that time the same way he was able to do his whole career so far? So I think it's a valid question. Mahomes is a unicorn. I hope we see Pat Mahomes the early years again and embrace struggle. Darwin, pictured left, is ready for Chiefs Kingdom. It was me. Lawrence has had injuries, but he has had a history of winning, so I think they'll be fine. I agree, KC. I think that they're going to be just fine. Let's keep it in the AFC West, and we're still going chronologically. The Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders. And for the Raiders, there's a lot of questions, but the most glaring one is the quarterback. Who's going to win the Raiders quarterback battle between Aiden O'Connell and journeyman Gardner Minshew? And depending on who they go with, what is the message you're sending the team? Aiden O'Connell is the decision where you're still hoping that he can be the franchise guy. Gardner Minshew is almost like an acceptance that we don't have the guy. So I think those are very two different energies that you're putting out onto the team. But of course, the Raiders are one of the only teams in the NFL that have still question marks at quarterback. Everybody else has either drafted the guy or they brought him in as a free agent or they already have the guy. The Raiders are the only team that is still kind of in this weird situation with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. And they didn't really do anything besides bringing Gardner Minshew this whole offseason. It's hard to know exactly what their plan is, but getting a difference maker at quarterback is going to be the biggest challenge for the Raiders this year. And this team has some limitations that kind of put on a ceiling of what the offense is going to be able to achieve. You still have Devontae Adams, but you lost Josh Jacobs. You lost Max Holland. You lost a lot of players. Making a playoff run, in my opinion, seems very unlikely for the Raiders this year. And it's really sad, too, because I think it's possible that Antonio Pierce is a good coach, but riding with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, you're asking a lot. And then we have our final AFC West team in here. And I hate talking about the Chargers this year because it's hard for me to say good things about the Chargers. But I think that they are in great shape right now. I think the future looks bright. I think even though they've lost all of these players, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, the fact that they have the head coach and the quarterback figured out makes me feel, if I'm a Chargers fan, fine. I feel good, right? Like, and you look at Harbaugh's philosophy, Jim Harbaugh, he's going with the same approach that the Lions did. Like, the Lions had a really high draft pick right when Dan Campbell got over there, and they could have drafted Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase probably, or somebody like that. Just like the Chargers could have drafted Marvin Harrison. But instead, they drafted Penei Sewell. Just like the Chargers drafted Joe Alt. They're building a really good offensive line because Jim Harbaugh requires one. And I think as long as you have Justin Herbert playing behind a decent O-line and you have players like Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, this is nothing to worry about. But the biggest question mark is going to be making a sizable leap on defense. And if Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to establish a winning culture in his first season with the Chargers. Fresh off of a national championship, can he turn the Chargers around? And the Chargers haven't won the AFC West since 2009, and they have just one Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. So there is decades worth of a decade sample size of mediocrity and saying things like chargering a game away. And now you bring in one of the best coaches in the NFL, top 10 immediately. And you got to ask yourself, not if he can turn it around, but when is he going to turn it around? Is it going to happen year one? Or is this going to take 2-3 years like it did for the Lions? All right. Next up, we have the other Los Angeles team. And this one is going to be the biggest concern for the Rams is going to be replacing Aaron Donald. Donald is retired. The Rams defense is now going to look completely different for the first time in 10 years. Los Angeles used its first 2 draft picks, and these were amazing selections. Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, who played together in Florida State as well. And they doubled down on outside linebacker Brendan Jackson and Tyler Davis, a defensive tackle, on day 3. So there's few teams, and I said this yesterday when I ranked the top 10 head coaches, there are few teams that scout talent better than the Los Angeles Rams. And I think that Brendan Fisk and Jared Verse are going to immediately make a huge impact. But Aaron Donald is one of those players that you can't replace him, right? The question is, how noticeable will it be? That's the biggest challenge. Can they make this as painless as possible? Or is there going to be this eye-opening moment where we remember and respect just how important Aaron Donald was to the Rams defense? They're going to be playing Detroit week 1, so they're going to have a stiff test right away versus one of the NFL's best offensive lines. But replacing Aaron Donald will not be easy. All right, next up we have welcome to Miami, the Miami Dolphins. And there's a couple of ways I could have gone with this one. I could have gone with Tua in his contract and the money. But I'm going to go with replacing 2 starters on the offensive line. One of the reasons why Tua was able to have personal best records was for the first time in his career, he started all 17 games. And a big part of that was that the Dolphins offensive line was protecting him. Of course, the quick pass scheme and Mike McDaniels' guru-ness, all of that helped. But Miami allowed the lowest pressure rate in the NFL at 25.6%. Like I said, a lot of that has to do with Miami getting the ball out of Tua's hands quick, but still, he was benefiting from 2 major contributors on the line, Robert Hunt and Connor Williams, and those guys are gone now. Liam Eichenberg started games at all 3 interior spots last season, and he'll be in competition for the starting job. But assuming Aaron Brewer wins the center job, Eichenberg might have to compete with guys like Robert Jones, Isaiah Wynn, Jack Driscoll, and Lester Cotton for one of the open guard spots. Terrion Armstead is elite at left tackle when he's healthy, and Austin Jackson made strides on the right side, but the interior remains a worry until we see the group start to materialize. And when you talk about offensive line concerns, you get even more concerned when you're talking about Tua, because Tua and his injuries and the concussions, and people were telling him not to play football anymore. And last year he was able to play all 17 games, but just like that, he loses 2 of his starting offensive line pieces. And because, he had played a whole season last year healthy, people aren't really talking about, well, Tua be able to stay healthy because he was healthy all last year. People just moved on. But this is a different offensive line, and they did downgrade. And how is Tua going to look with that offensive line? And can Tua Tagovailoa secure this job of the future, right? The Miami Dolphins have not paid Tua. Tua is the quarterback today, but will he be the quarterback for the next 5 years? That's another major question mark. I mean, the Dolphins are going to have to pay him a lot of money, but we know this. Paying a superstar quarterback, the most money in the NFL, you can win a Super Bowl doing that. Mahomes did it last year. And drafting a rookie quarterback and not paying him can also get you in a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy. But one thing we know doesn't work is taking a mediocre quarterback or a slightly above mediocre quarterback and paying them the most amount of money in the NFL. That doesn't work. We have enough data to know that there are really only 2 options to getting to a Super Bowl. You either have a superstar or you have a really good rookie quarterback and you're in a 4-year window where you haven't had to pay him yet, and you bring in a bunch of talent like the 49ers. I don't know if paying Tua the most money of any quarterback in the NFL is a recipe for success, but I don't know if the Dolphins are going to have a choice. So there's just going to be a lot of eyes on Tua's performance this year and wondering, hey, is this our guy, right? Is this our guy for the future? Or would we regret it if we made him the highest paid quarterback in the league? And I still think he's got a lot to prove to make people feel confident enough to pay him that kind of money. Next up, we have, typo. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota drafted J.J. McCarthy and brought in journeyman quarterback Sam Darnold. Who is going to win the competition between the two? Any quarterback competition is going to make my list as the biggest question mark because you just have to have the quarterback figured out. And J.J. McCarthy, a lot of people thought that he was drafted way too high. He wasn't asked to do all that much at Michigan. And then you have Sam Darnold, who just benefited from being with Kyle Shanahan, probably the most quarterback-friendly coach in the NFL. Could that revive his career? And Sam Darnold was drafted, number 2 overall? Can Kyle Shanahan's time with him turn him into a really good quarterback? And then, if so, is there an issue with having J.J. McCarthy on the sideline? How long can you keep him there, especially if the Vikings aren't winning? So this handling of the quarterback situation is the biggest challenge for the Vikings right now. Kevin O'Connell has pledged a competitive environment in training camp with Darnold and McCarthy competing. There are other 2 quarterbacks, Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins, but like J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold are the ones competing for the starting job. It boils down to Darnold, who's the QB1 for now, and McCarthy. And you can't convince me of any other quarterback. But how quickly is McCarthy going to be able to make an impact as a rookie and prove himself? Look, I had the talent. They just didn't ask me to do it at Michigan. So it wasn't that I couldn't do it. They just didn't ask me to do it. J.J. McCarthy is going to want to have some of those throws where he wows people in practice and they see a side to him that maybe you didn't see in college. Minnesota will have 20 plus practices and 180 minutes of exhibition football to make a call prior to week 1. But even if Darnold wins the starting job initially, there are questions of when the Vikings might consider pivoting to McCarthy. Can he take over the team by their week 6 bye? Would it be dependent on the record? What if the Vikings go out to an 0-3 start? Could they do it week 4 and try to save their season? However, this is a difficult situation, and Kevin O'Connell's going to have his hands full. The most challenging thing for the Vikings is going to be handling their quarterback situation. And there's a couple teams that are in that situation, and I was really close to putting the Patriots in that situation too, because they draft Drake May, but Jacoby Brissett's getting all the starting reps, and everybody at practice says Jacoby Brissett's the guy. But it's like, how long can he hold off Drake May and his talents? But I think the biggest concern is finding a left tackle, because I don't think it matters who they go with if they don't have a left tackle. I think both quarterbacks are going to struggle massively. And they have questions at receiver as well. And they do have a void of skill position talent. That's why Brandon Ayuk was an option for the Patriots. They reached out to the 49ers and tried to make a trade for him. We just heard about that, I think, today or yesterday. The question is who's going to take over at the left tackle spot. The Patriots' options right now are less than ideal. They have Chukwuma Okafor, who appears to be the favorite as per New England Patriots website, their homepage. But he's almost exclusively been a right tackle in the NFL, with mixed results leading to his benching last year in Pittsburgh. He started as a left tackle, came in 2017 for Western Michigan. Another possible option is Caden Wallace, but he's a rookie, and it's a bit of a reach. He was selected with the 68th overall pick. He didn't take a single snap at left tackle in college, so here's another guy that you're asking to move to left tackle. Calvin Anderson or Vidarian Lowe could be in the mix, but until someone steps up, the Patriots appear to have one of the NFL's shakier left tackle situations in the NFL. Patriots need a left tackle. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints. And I'm going to go with Dennis Allen here, okay? Because for a while now, I have thought that Dennis Allen should have been fired. He has a losing season. He's 16-18 in his 2 seasons. There's definitely questions about his job security, and he has the hottest seat of any coach in the NFL. I don't think that's debatable. So what will it take for Dennis Allen to keep his job? How good do the Saints have to be? And what if the Saints are the worst team in their division? Dennis Allen would be gone. They also have offensive line issues, but I think the biggest question mark for the Saints is, man, I don't even know. Is it Dennis Allen? Is it Derek Carr? Is it the offensive line? There's just a lot of question marks surrounding the team, but like the buck stops with the head coach. So I'm going to say Dennis Allen. Is he a head coach in the NFL? Yes. Is he ever going to be a head coach in the NFL again after this year? That I don't know, and that is the biggest question mark surrounding the Saints. You got to get the coach right. You can have the right team, but if you don't have the coach right, you're not going to make a playoff push. You're not going to outcoach Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid and Sean McVay. You're not going to do it. Is Dennis Allen the guy for the Saints, or is he not? That is the biggest challenge facing the Saints this year. And I say challenge because I don't think he is. I don't think he is the guy. And for whatever reason, the Saints continue to roll with him. And I think it's going to prove to be another bad decision. And the Saints organization has made a few of those since Sean Payton left. And I can't believe they've stuck with the same guy. I mean, maybe Bill Belichick would have gone there. All right. Next up, we have the New York Giants. The New York Giants. Bill said, think the Pats reach for Bakatari. Think the Pats reach. No, I don't think so. I just, he hasn't played. He hasn't played at that position, so I don't know if he. A lot of times it's just easier to bring in a left tackle than to move a right tackle to left tackle. So, yeah, it's going to be a long season. And now, Bill, we make it to your beloved, your diehard team, the New York Giants, who had a record of 6-11 last season. And there's quite a few question marks surrounding the New York Giants this year. But none are more real than Daniel Jones and his future with the New York Giants. The Giants prioritized Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley when Jones signed his extension. Did the Giants make the right choice? Jones needs to prove that he's a franchise quarterback, especially now that Barkley is in Philly. We've pulled up his record without Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones is like, it was crazy. It was like he was 8-2 with Saquon Barkley and like 2-10 without him. Well, now Saquon Barkley's not there, and they decided to pay you and not him. So ultimately, you have to prove in this season that you're the guy, because the Giants bypassed all quarterback options that they had in April's draft. And they said, you know what? We're going to double down and we're going to get Malik Neighbors. We're going to get our quarterback a weapon. Instead of trying to get another quarterback, we're going to see if we can make this one work. We're going to see if Dable can be a coach of the year candidate again. We're going to see if we can get our offensive line to be better. We're going to see if Jones can stay healthy. If he is going to stay healthy, he has some talented receivers to throw to. But how well is he going to be able to move around in the pocket after his season-ending ACL injury? And more importantly, in my opinion, what is his confidence level going to be at after the Giants openly considered trading him or drafting his replacement? That was not something that stayed inside the building. That was leaked. The Giants GM or owner gave permission, or I believe the word was his blessing, for the Giants to draft a franchise quarterback. Should they have wanted to do that? Daniel Jones saw all of that. How is he going to play after that type of an offseason? If Jones doesn't bounce back in the first 3-4 weeks, Drew Lock, who signed a 1-year deal with the team, the former Bronco, former Seahawks, he is going to be breathing down his neck. And I think Brian Dable is going to put Drew Lock into the mix early. But the biggest challenge for the New York Giants is getting the most out of Daniel Jones among all of these issues going on with the team. And Bill said tag on Saquon as $10 million, and the tag for Daniel Jones would have been $24 million, and it's all guaranteed. It's one of the reasons, is all I'm saying, we didn't actually have the cap space to tag Daniel Jones. He wasn't happy about it, but it is what it is. Yeah, and yeah, you guys are going to have to play him twice a year, and he's probably going to want to have his best games during those games. The sweet revenge twice a year, not even just once, twice a year. That's going to be rough. All right, next up we have the other New York team, as Bill likes to say, our little brother, the New York Jets. The biggest challenge for the New York Jets, keeping Aaron Rodgers healthy. 4 snaps into his Jets debut, he tears his Achilles. That's the easy one. But how do you keep him healthy? I'm going to give you the real challenge: building chemistry on the offensive line. Aaron Rodgers is back from the injury, and they are going to need to do everything they can to keep him upright because he's 40 years old, right? He needs protection. He's not as young as he was. He's coming off of an injury, and now they added a lot of new pieces, okay? They have a new left tackle in Tyron Smith. He's missed 37 games over the past 4 seasons. Presumably his camp his camp partner that he's competing with, right tackle Morgan Moses, who's also 33. He's returning from a pectoral injury, and he hasn't been practicing since joining the team. Right guard Elijah Vera Tucker's coming off his own season-ending Achilles. And first-round offensive tackle Olufa Shuno might be a work in progress, but he could be thrown into the fire. The talent to get Rodgers and keep him healthy, it seems to be there, but this is just one of those things where the group needs time to gel, and it's not clear when that opportunity will arise. So Aaron Rodgers, they could have drafted Brock Bowers, and they decided to go with an offensive lineman, and they knew what they needed. They needed Aaron Rodgers healthy. So you got talent on paper, but will they mesh together? Will the first round rookie be good when he's thrown into the fire? And will Aaron Rodgers have time? This was a glaring weakness last year. And just because you address it on paper doesn't mean you've addressed it. So that's going to be the biggest challenge for the Jets. And finally, we make it to the Philadelphia Eagles. And we were talking about the Philadelphia Eagles briefly. The Philadelphia Eagles, they need to get their secondary up to speed. And I think they will, because new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio runs 2 high schemes. And now a lot of teams around the league do. But the veteran coach arrived in Philadelphia after trying a year in Miami. He said the players couldn't focus. Now he's with the Eagles, and Fangio is going to be tasked with taking on an underachieving unit. But I think that there's real reason to be optimistic. I mentioned those reasons earlier. Quinion Mitchell and second rounder Cooper DeJean, as well as the return of CJ Gardner-Johnson, who the Eagles missed last season, and you could tell, and also Isaiah Rodgers, formerly suspended cornerback, along with Darius Slay and a few other returners. But there is enough in the secondary to thrive, to thrive. And I think Vic Fangio, one of the best defensive coaches in the league, the Eagles are going to be back this year. And by back, I just mean one of the top dogs in the NFL, not just the NFC. Daniel Jones, DJ, about them trying to trade up for a QB. He wasn't happy about it, but it is what it is. Oh, okay. Yeah, at the end of the day, these guys know it's a business. They know it's no hard feelings. But still, it does hurt. It does hurt to not be wanted. And this next team has quarterbacks that know exactly what it's like to not be wanted, because the Broncos and the Bears shipped Russell Wilson and Justin Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And although those two quarterbacks are decades apart in age, they're both at a crossroads in their career, and how Pittsburgh plans to use the two is going to be fascinating, because we don't know yet if Wilson's the clear-cut week 1 starter. And is there a Fields package on the offense? Is there going to be a moment in the game where Fields runs in, Russ runs off? Is Fields going to just straight up pass Wilson on the depth chart at some point in the season? Will Arthur Smith utilize, we know how much he loves the running game, will he utilize Justin Fields as a weapon just in the running game, maybe not even as a quarterback? All of these question marks remain to be seen. If there is a Fields package, it's going to be ran by Arthur Smith, who is an upgrade over, I'm blanking on his name. They fired him in the middle of the season last year. The Steelers needed to bring in a really good offensive mind, and they bring in Arthur Smith, who honestly, it seems like a good fit for the Steelers. Tough, physical, run the football down your throat. We're going to be just tougher, and this is NFC or AFC North football. But I think that could benefit, or Russell Wilson could benefit from this, right? Imagine bringing in Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay. They might want Justin Fields and Russell Wilson to do things that they really don't have the talent to do. You bring in Arthur Smith, whose playbook is maybe a little more simple, relying a little more on the running backs than the quarterbacks. And although Arthur Smith isn't your first choice as offensive coordinator, it seems like he's the perfect fit for the Steelers and the team that they have and the quarterbacks that they have right now. So this is going to be the biggest challenge for the Steelers, is not just figuring out who their quarterback's going to be, but determining an offensive identity, which I think is going to rely heavily on the running game. Mike Tomlin played quarterback roulette last year. He lost despite Pittsburgh making the playoffs. The AFC North is the most tough, physical, challenging division in the NFL. How the offense materializes is the obvious number one issue for the Steelers right now, who tried to make a call to get Brandon Ayuk on the team, because they know after losing Deontay Johnson to Carolina that they need to figure out who's going to take those snaps, who's going to be that guy. Roman Wilson was drafted, but Roman Wilson's not Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. So the Steelers, they need to determine an offensive identity, and they need to figure out who their quarterback's going to be. Matt Canada, that's who it was. Thank you. Remember the Fire Canada chants at the stadium. It was hilarious. Man, that's not funny for Matt Canada. All right, next up, we have a team that you probably don't even think of a weakness. The San Francisco 49ers. What is the 49ers' weakness? Getting the most out of their D line. That is a arguable one. They have a good defense. They have a good defensive coordinator who's taking over. There's a lot of drama right now surrounding Brandon Ayuk. I think Kyle Shanahan is doing his best to keep a loaded roster together and also trying to keep his team's focus while they try to get over the hump after a second heartbreaking Super Bowl loss. You want to keep your players focused and you want to keep the band together. But if we're just looking strictly at roster challenges facing the 49ers, you got to start with the defensive line. That's the position group that saw the most overhaul this offseason. Eric Armstead, Chase Young, Javon Kinlaw, Keelan Farrell, Randy Gregory, all gone from last year's club. Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott headline as the offseason additions, and Pro Bowler Nick Bosa still anchors the front, of course. I think Nick Bosa is actually going to have a monster season this year. Floyd has been steady in recent years, so that's going to be a little bit of pressure off Nick Bosa. There's pressure on new defensive coordinator Nick Sorosane, who has risen fast through the ranks over the last couple of years. I think he's going to be an upgrade. I think the 49ers are going to have a good defense, but it's true. Last year, if they would have had a defense that they had the year before or the year before, the 49ers would have won the Super Bowl. But instead, they had an uncharacteristic season defensively, and that explains the adjustment and the change at defensive coordinator. But getting the most out of the defensive line is going to be the biggest question mark for the San Francisco 49ers. And I think most people still think the 49ers are going to be the best team in the NFC next year, if not the second or third best. Here's a team that will stay in the division, the Seattle Seahawks. Their biggest question mark, keeping the passing game afloat. That's going to be a challenge because we talked about Geno Smith and the success he had under Dave Canals. Was it Dave Canals? Hold on. Dave Canals. Hold on. I have it in my notes right here. Yeah, Dave Canals. But then last year with Dave Canals in Tampa, the Seahawks were 9-8 and they were very up and down. And Seattle also has a first-year head coach in Mike McDonald, with an interesting situation on offense. Ryan Grubb's explosive passing game helped the University of Washington make it all the way to this past season's college football playoffs. But will the offensive coordinator scheme translate to professional football? They had another college quarterback that was really, really good in college, and they wondered, will it translate to the NFL? That guy was Pete Carroll, who was having success at USC before he came over to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks receiving core is really good. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, JSN. That gives him enough firepower, even if there's some big worries with other elements of the offense. The fact that Grubb arrives with Geno Smith fresh off of a step-back season is notable. I'm not sure if Geno Smith is going to take another step back or maybe get back to the form we saw him last at. He's not getting any younger, though. And I thought the quiet move of the offseason for the Seahawks was their trade for Sam Howell. I thought Sam Howell showed us enough last season where I actually wanted my team to put him on the bench. I think he could easily take over the starting job for Geno Smith if Geno looks like he did last year or even a little worse. It would not shock me if Sam Howell at some point this season is starting. But Geno Smith will have the opportunity to keep the job. But the biggest question is going to be, can the Seahawks, I almost said the 49ers, can the Seahawks keep the passing game afloat? And can Geno Smith play an entire season for the Seahawks? And oh wait, I hit that one already. Did you not see it? I'll find it for you and put it on your. Oh, okay. You sent it to my DMs. I'm gonna check it out. Hold on. I got it right here. That was so fast. Wow. Fire Canada. Damn. Ouch. Imagine being that coach on the sideline. And Bill said, I'd rather have Sam Howell than Zach Wilson, so I understand. Yeah. Yeah, Sam Howell looked good last season. All right, next up we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another team that finished with a 9-8 record. However, a much more difficult division the Seahawks were in. Tampa Bay made it to the playoffs and then surprised people in the playoffs. Their biggest challenge is going to be keeping Baker Mayfield playing at the level we saw him playing last year. I think Mayfield's comeback season last year, especially after the Buccaneers had a 4-7 start, to all of a sudden winning their third straight NFC South title, then upsetting the Eagles on the wild card weekend. And then Mayfield was also using his legs more than he has in previous season. He started attacking the field more vertically. He cut way back on his turnovers and sacks, and rightfully earned the lucrative extension, $100 million deal with Tampa Bay. Now he's the guy. He's not a bridge quarterback. They are doubling down on Baker Mayfield. And the question is, can Baker Mayfield continue where he left off? Because that first half of the season, like if he goes out there in 2024 and the Buccaneers are 4-7, people are going to feel like that deal was a bad deal. But I thought Baker Mayfield looked really good. I think, personally, I believe in him. So you're just hoping that he can pick up right where he left off, but it doesn't always work out that way. You also have a new coach taking over, Liam Cohen, who worked with him briefly with the Rams. So there's a little continuity between Baker Mayfield and the new guy because he's taking over for Dave Canales, who we just talked about. On a positive note, Mayfield appears to have a stronger wide receiver core with all the key members returning and the additions of Sterling Shepard and Jalen McMillan. The Bucs also have good pass catching options at running back and tight end, but Cohen will be calling plays by himself at the NFL level for the first time. That's going to bring question marks up just on its own. Tampa has some worries on the interior, on the offensive line. But all in all, is Baker Mayfield going to be able to play at that postseason level? Actually, just December and January in general, Baker Mayfield looked like a whole different quarterback. Are we going to get that Baker Mayfield or the 4-7 start Baker Mayfield? Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans. And the Tennessee Titans are definitely a team with a lot of question marks as well. But I'm going to go with Will Levis. Biggest challenge is going to be giving Will Levis every chance to succeed. The Titans have one primary goal, in my opinion, this season, and it's determining whether or not Will Levis is the franchise quarterback of the future for the Tennessee Titans and somebody that they can start building around. Everything else is really not important compared to that monster question mark. Tennessee could be a surprise team, and me and Rick were just talking about that when we broke down the AFC South. Even in the Jaguars and the Colts and the expectations, in the Texans with the Super Bowl, all of that, the Titans still find themselves as a sneaky team. Tony Pollard Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. They bring in a lot of really good weapons, in my opinion. And they also bring in Brian Callahan, who was responsible for not just taking Joe Burrow to the Super Bowl and making him work, but also getting Jake Browning playing at such a high level last season. I mean, Jake Browning came in and he was turning heads. People were like, "Who is this guy?" And he was able to win with him. Callahan did that with Jake Browning. Can he do it with Will Levis? The biggest challenge is going to be giving Will Levis every chance to succeed this year. But we saw 2 Will Levises. We saw 4 touchdown passes in his opening game, and we saw 4 touchdown passes with the rest of his games combined. But Brian Callahan is the offensive guy. You get rid of the defensive guy. You bring in some firepower and some talent. Watch out. Tennessee might be good, but you got to get the quarterback right. And we don't know if Tennessee's got that right now. Bill said, I hope they use Shepard. He was barely used by the Giants last year. I want nothing but the best for him. Bill's really nice to his ex-players. I've noticed that. And last but not least, we have the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders. This one is an easy one. Protecting Jaden Daniels. This is going to be the biggest challenge for the Commanders this year. And this offseason hasn't been very predictable for the Commanders. They've done a lot, right? They got a new general manager, Adam Peters, and the new era is underway. They bring in Jaden Daniels with the 2nd overall pick. From what I'm seeing from the Commanders and their websites, they like what they see so far from Jaden Daniels. But the offensive line stands out as a leaky hole on this team. And that's worrisome for a rookie quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who is thin, just speaking of his build, and that was a pre-draft talking point, was that, is he going to be able to stay healthy? I think Daniels can have the best season of any rookie quarterback that was drafted this year, but nothing can undercut that prediction faster than poor blocking, a poor offensive line. Look at last year's tape, and you will see that this was a really big problem for the Commanders all season. Cornelius Lucas could be the week 1 left tackle, with Andrew Wiley manning the right tackle slot following an uneven debut season with the Commanders. The interior will largely be new, so new offensive system under Cliff Kingsbury, a new head coach in Dan Quinn, a rookie quarterback, and only so much blocking talent up front. A dose of reality could dampen the current excitement in Washington. But if that offensive line, and plus, keep in mind, Jaden Daniels is going to be able to use his athletic talent to make up and compensate for some of the weaknesses on the offensive line. But yeah, you do worry. What if he can't stay healthy for the whole season because the offensive line is just giving up too many hits? So the biggest challenge for the Washington Commanders is going to be protecting Jaden Daniels so that he can actually learn and grow and show us something. And then Bill said, everyone loves Shepard, not just me. A lot of things at the Commander Stadium are leaky. That's true. Man, I didn't know that their stadium was in such poor shape until I saw some of these videos of the leaks going on in the bathroom and stuff like that. To wrap up this, I wanted to go through the top 100. I do this every single season, and I love doing it. I love doing it because the NFL ranks the top 100 players, and there's the way that this is done is it's voted on by the players themselves. The top 10 will be announced on Friday, August 2nd. Before that, though, we're going to be doing 10 at a time. So you got 100 through 91, 91 or 90 through 81, and so on. So it'll get more exciting as we go for sure. But let's see who rounds out the top 100 with number 100. Outside linebacker Zaire Franklin, Indianapolis Colts, taken as the number 235 overall pick in the 2018 draft. Franklin first caught people's attention with a jaw-dropping 167 tackles in 2022 before eclipsing that with a career best 179 combined tackles for the Colts. So he earned a spot in the top 100 for the first time in his career. Maybe he can even go up a little bit higher. At number 99, we got Levante David. Levante David. And let me pull it up too. Here we go. Levante David. Let me also do top 100 players. I'm going to make this a ticker so people that are joining this now can see what we're talking about. All right. Levante David is at number 99. And helping Tampa Bay secure its third straight NFC South crown, David was the lone player in the NFL with 100-plus tackles, 15-plus tackles for a loss, and 3-plus sacks. His 134 combined tackles were the most he's had in a single season since 2015. At 34 years old, the Super Bowl champion signed a one-year, $9 million extension to remain with the Bucs for his 13th season with the team and the league. You got to love the consistency. Let me do this really quick. 100. Zaire Franklin. And I was just doing this with Bill the other day, and he was like, you know what you should do? You should have the ticker rolling so people can see it all the time. So I want to do that. All right, at number 98, Cameron Heyward. Cameron Heyward from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, I can see it. I'm not mad about it. It depends. I need to see who is not on this list first. But Cameron Heyward is a 6-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time All-Pro. He struggled last year, and he was ranked within the top 50 in the last 2 seasons. He had a groin injury in week 1, and he struggled to find his stride, and he was kind of hurt all season, recovering from surgery. He was on IR for a little bit. His 2 sacks were the lowest in his career since 2012. So that's why I was saying I want to see who else is on this list, because Cameron Heyward's best days might be behind him, but they're putting him in the top 100, saying, hey, maybe this guy's got a couple more good seasons in him, and he just was hurt last year. We'll have to wait and see. Ooh, number 97 is a good one. This could be a little low. You guys tell me. At number 7, we have Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin. I got to delete some of these. There we go. Terry McLaurin has played with 10 different starting quarterbacks since entering the league in 2019. It's crazy how this guy finds a way to produce no matter who is the quarterback, whether it was Sam Howell or any of the other guys that have been on the list. Terry McLaurin has been consistent. Case in point, McLaurin can become the first player to post 5 straight seasons of 1,000+ receiving yards, with each coming along with a different quarterback. Nobody's ever done that. Heading into training camp, I mean, there's a reason that that's never happened. McLaurin, in his connection with rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, could be the 5th best rookie to veteran duo, according to Around the NFL's article that they just did. And I still think Brandon Ayuk, his number one target is the Commanders. But yeah, Terry McLaurin, honestly, 97 might be too close to 100. He might be closer to 50. All right, at number 96, we have Dion Dawkins, offensive tackle from the Buffalo Bills. Known for his contributions off the field, Dawkins has emerged as a critical piece for the Buffalo Bills offense. In 2023, Dawkins finished with the fourth highest pass block win rate last season, and he allowed just a 6.9% pressure rate, which was the 3rd lowest among left tackles. After cementing himself as a regular starter, he earned his 3rd consecutive Pro Bowl honor and signed a 3-year contract to keep him with Bills through 2026. So I love that they're giving the offensive line some love. I'm wondering if Quinn Meinerz is going to be on this list, the guard that the Broncos just recently paid, who also had a really good season. At number 96, we have Julian Love. Julian Love, safety from the Seattle Seahawks. Julian Love earned his first ever Pro Bowl nod and spot in the top 100 after a career-high 4 interceptions and 85 solo tackles in his first season with the Seahawks. His best performance of the season included a 2-interception and 8-tackle game in a critical Week 15 win over a struggling Eagles team. Now, with Aiden Durd at the helm as Seattle's new defensive coordinator, it'll be interesting to see how Love continues to improve. I didn't know. I did not even know him, to be totally honest. I had no idea. Well, I did 96 twice. That's what I did. There we go. At number 94. I don't know about this one. Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence at number 94. Although the Jags saw a late season collapse, it's no surprise that the team cashed in on the former Clemson star after Lawrence led the franchise to its first back-to-back winning season since 2004 and 5. Jacksonville locked up the number 1 overall pick with a 5-year, $275 million contract. Lawrence is one of the brightest young passers in the NFL, but a 21-14 touchdown interception ratio needs to improve in 2024, and that goes to the biggest challenge was having consistency. The Jaguars need to find some consistency and get off the roller coaster. Trevor Lawrence, he's up 2 spots from last year, so he was at 96 last year. Honestly, I think 90s is just a little too high. He's got to be in the 70s somewhere. I mean, come on. But you got it. Number 945. That's not right. All right, at number 93, we have Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith at 93. Harrison Smith is the free safety for the Minnesota Vikings, and Smith posted 93 combined tackles and a career-best 6 quarterback hits in 2023. He also finished with 3 sacks, which took place in Week 4 over the Panthers. With 6 Pro Bowls and an All-Pro honors under his belt, the 35-year-old has cemented himself as one of the best safeties in the league and remains so as he enters his 13th season with the Vikings. And 35 is, for a free safety, it's pretty old, right? But the fact that he's still on this top 100 list tells you that he's still playing at a high level. And he's definitely not the oldest player that's going to be on this list, because at number 92, I give you Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers comes on this list at 92. I think that's absolutely bananas. The fact that he was hurt last season, they're throwing him all the way to 92. I mean, guys, he's not down 2 spots. He's down 41 spots. 41 spots. He didn't even play last season. It's not even like he regressed. He just didn't play. 41 spots is a hefty fall for a guy as decorated as Aaron Rodgers, but Rodgers took a major descent in this year's rankings after the torn Achilles with the Jets. But the future Hall of Famer remains one of the most decorated quarterbacks in the league. And he goes on to go and do his accolades, but we don't need to do that. Look, Aaron Rodgers has never been this high or low. I don't know how. I'll say high because the numbers are going higher. Aaron Rodgers has never been this high on the list since he took over as a starting quarterback for the Packers. 92. So according to this, Aaron Rodgers this year is going to be the worst Aaron Rodgers that we've ever seen. That's what is being predicted. Not sure if that's going to be the case. 92, damn. Aaron Rodgers making it 92. It's crazy. Bill said, Love's good. We offered him more money at the 2022 bye week, which he turned down. Turned out to be more than the Seahawks ended up paying him. Oh, I didn't know he was a Giant. All right, at number 91, I give you to Karen Wood. Or Tarek Wood. Cornerback out of Seattle. And what's crazy is they have Devin Witherspoon on the other side. Upon earning Pro Bowl honors in 2022 as a rookie with 6 interceptions and 63 combined tackles, Woolen had an off year in 2023, finishing with just 53 tackles and 2 interceptions, along the 5th-round pick Devin Witherspoon and new head coach Mike McDonald. Tarek could regain his rookie season form. And honestly, the Seahawks seem like that team too, where if you put Aaron Rodgers on or any quarterback on this team, the Seahawks, the expectations, I mean, they could be fairly high with the amount of talent they have. They've been quietly building a really good roster. A lot of those pieces coming from the Russell Wilson trade. They are one of the few teams I've ever seen say bye to their 10-year-long franchise quarterback and not miss a beat. And a lot of that has to do with how talented this roster is. But yeah, eventually they're going to need a real legit top 10, top 15 quarterback. I don't know if they have that with Geno Smith right now, but their defense is in good shape with Tarek Woolen making the list at 91, and Devin Witherspoon is going to be a bona fide QB1. So things are looking up for the Seattle Seahawks and their defense. And I'm going to be doing this on my channel as well. I'll be doing 90 through 81 tomorrow, and then I'm going to continue to go down, 80 to 71, however it falls. But let me know in the comments if you guys agree with the 100. I thought Terry McLaurin was a little high. I thought Aaron Rodgers was a little bit high. But overall, I don't have, besides those two, I don't have any huge problems with the other ones. Bill said, still shows Rodgers on the screen, just FYI. Oh. Why is it doing that? There it goes. I had to double click it. Thank you, Bill. Sometimes it does this thing where I put it in, but I have to click it to deselect it and click it again, even though I've already edited it. I don't know. It's a StreamYard glitch, I think. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the top 100 players, doing numbers 100 through 91, and there's going to be more of that to come. Please like this video. We appreciate it a lot. Like I said, Rick was having some computer issues today, so had to jump on and go solo this time, but we're going to have Rick back very shortly. And as always, you guys can find me at my Kyle Kitzman YouTube page, where I go live almost every single day when I'm not here. And we're going to be breaking down some really exciting stuff tomorrow. An episode I'm actually really excited about. PFF has this article out right now that's like one player to watch for on every team. And that's just going to be a lot of fun, because we're going to go through and we're going to look at, we're going to give you a cheerleader moment, right? You're going to get a player on each team that you can get excited about. I'm excited about it. There's a lot of players that you probably aren't familiar with that are going to be on the list, like Darius Robinson and Rendell Moore and just other guys, Cole Bishop. There's going to be a lot of drafted rookies and veteran journeyman players, and I'm going to give you the lowdown on all of that. So definitely check out tomorrow, Kyle Kitzman. And yeah, please like the video, subscribe if you're watching this on a later date. Thank you guys for tuning in. We had Bill in the chat. We had Jinja, we had KC, we had Embrace the Struggle, we had Nash, we even had another guy. Who was it? Gamer Dad 18792. Thank you guys for being in here. And as always, you guys can find us on Mondays and Thursdays, and we're getting close. It is July 22nd, so we are about 9 days away from a month that actually has football being played in it. So this is the place to be for that. If you guys haven't been here for a regular season, it's a lot of fun. We're going to have a good time this year. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for being active in the chat and the comments. And as always, you guys have a great rest of your night, and I will see you guys tomorrow on my personal channel. You're beautiful. See you guys. See ya.